Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm back again. Today is going to be a trade recap. It's going to be for the 22nd of March, which was Wednesday, and this was a loss. And I'm going to go through this because I took a bad trade, and I thought it's important to, get that out there and really, be transparent and hold myself accountable and commit to my plan. So I'll be sharing as I have all my winners and losers. And yeah, this was particularly bad. I'm going to break down the reasons why, the analysis, and just let you know where I got lost and where it's quite easy to get lost sometimes when you get sucked into the pattern of your strategy. So come along with me and I'll show you. I'll start us off here on the EU 4-hour chart. Ignore these things above here, this 4-hour and daily block and anything written on here. This is not for the price action we're concerned with. I'm just using a replay tool to go back. So we've got this daily imbalance here, and we've got this liquidity above price here, right? This buy side liquidity. I'll give you the pros and what I saw for this trade. So of course we had swept sell side liquidity, we'd moved up quite correctively, and we had swept to buy side liquidity here, right? So we'd taken plenty of buy side liquidity on a higher time frame perspective. Go down to the hourly. So on the hourly, gives us the better picture, right? We had just barely, and I mean just barely, tipped into this daily imbalance POI. So I was counting that in my favor. I was thinking, okay, we've touched it, rejected it with a strong bearish engulfing hourly candle, which is great. We have also come above previous daily high, and we've swept that and taken the buy side liquidity from the previous daily high and closed out with a bearish engulfing, right? So to me, it's plenty of buy side has been taken. We're due a pullback. I only wanted to pull back to a certain point, which I'll show you on the charts. But so we're here on the hourly. Let me paint the picture. We've got an hourly imbalance here and order block below, right? So for me, we've taken buy side liquidity, and that's a draw on price. That's a draw on liquidity. Yeah. So pullbacks are all good, as long as you've got the pros, right, that go along with it. So yeah, so price had swept internal liquidity, broken up, taken a previous daily high, buy side liquidity, touched a higher time frame POI, and then left behind a imbalance and order block. And what I'll do is down in the 15-minute, we'll see a better story of the day's price action. So typical fashion, we've got the Asia range. We've got London taking Asia's low and taking the sell side liquidity from that and breaking up to break the previous daily high and form a new high, right? But overall, taking plenty of buy side liquidity. It kind of left these lows alone down here, which is, it's one of those things that could come down for that sell side liquidity, but I wasn't looking to go that far. For me, the target would have been this 1 hour imbalance because we are bullish. So the 1 hour imbalance or the order block, excuse me, is a great target for it to continue on its way, right? So let me paint this 15-minute picture. I counted this as, the 15-minute break of structure. We've got a 15-minute break of structure, which I wasn't super happy with. It was kind of like a sweep, but again, I was a bit eager with the trade because I saw this buy side being taken, and I was getting a bit. This is where I started to get sucked in, of course. So I've seen all this buy side. I've seen this energetic move downwards, and the candles closed below the last candle's lows. We had this inducement, which I think looked great. It still does look great, but we had inducement here, which is obviously buy side liquidity to be used for the move down, right? So we had that there, we had this BOS, and we had this corrective pullback. So we had breakdown, inducement, breakdown, stalled, kind of tapped the 1 hour POI, left kind of relative equal lows. So for me, that's all kind of like a draw or on liquidity here. But they, if anything, you know, this low wasn't really relative because it's just gone slightly below it. So it contributes to why it's a bad trade. But that's what I was seeing. That's a magnet to price. Price has taken this nice formation down and it's pulling back up. And we have our 15 minute. Don't need to go any lower than the 15 minute because, you know, 15 minute has a high probability order block. Why do I need to go down to the 5 minute or any lower if I can get my risk to reward? As usual, I use 50% of the fair value gap. And this is how my limit was set up when I saw this now. And it was something like this. Yeah, so decent profit, decent risk reward, decent stop placement, and everything was looking good. So where did I go wrong with this? And I'll show you that now. The DXY was against me as well. DXY was the main negative here, alongside the fact that we're in a bullish trend, and like there's nothing really convincing happening here. But there is a pattern and there's pros that I could put to it. So I'll dive deeper into DXY and show you why that it was an issue for me and should have kept me out of this trade with all of the cons. As it's a pullback, I'm a lot stricter with the cons that I can go against in a pullback. So right now the cons are the 15-minute break was quite sweepish rather than, you know, an obvious break of structure, and DXY was against me. I'll show you DXY now. DXY built up some trendline liquidity that was completely against the move and was with trend. So guys, this is what DXY looked like at the time. So these may not be the exact same timings, but regardless, DXY had built up this trendline liquidity, broke down and took the previous daily low. Now, the same way that EU took the previous daily high, so this was another pro in my favor. They'd both taken the buy side liquidity and DXY took sell side liquidity. So with that, you're expecting DXY to go up, which means EU is going to go down, therefore in favor of my sell, right? At least until I'm thinking these highs get swept, right, till it takes out this trendline liquidity, which would have been in my favor. Now, if we look closer at DXY on the 15 minute, like it's crazy that I traded against this. So as you can see, I've pointed out this was a bit in hindsight, but as you can see, I pointed out this 1 hour order block. I did see this coming up to it, but I thought, you know, there's the London high here, there's the Asia high here, so close, and it's trendline liquidity, and they're relative equal highs, so we should take that buy side, I'm thinking, right? And that's in favor of my trade. However, look what we're doing down here. We're creating a sell side liquidity trend line, and it's just making an obvious case for DXY to continue down to the sell side, which, you know, means EU's gonna go up, right? So I've set my limit and I'm trading against DXY, which is literally the inverse. And DXY, why this is important is because for a pullback, this is against trend. It's a pullback. So it's not like it's pro trend where you're gonna have maybe a con like this where it looks like it's possibly setting up some liquidity the other way, but may still go in your favor because it's with trend, and the trend usually kind of overpowers, which is what's happened here. So now that we've seen this, I'll play it and you can see how that played out. It played out as obvious as you'd think, right? It's rejected this 1 hour block and come down, right? It's coming for this sell side liquidity. You can see that it's had its moments, but the target is quite obvious. It wasn't going to agree with my trade, at least not for long enough for me to win my trade anyway. So back to EU now. We'll continue there. So back here on EU, we've got this lovely setup coming along, which is against everything. And to make matters worse, I left the house and thought I'll manage it on my phone. I'll be back quickly, which isn't good, because possibly I could have spotted it earlier and just got out sooner and not taken this 0.57% loss that I did when I manually closed it out. I'd rather manually close it out as soon as I've realised my mistake, and rather than wait for it to take the 1% or possibly come back to break even. Serves me right. Learn from it. I journaled it immediately, so I'll play this through. Comes up, comes down, messes around a little bit, and I would have been in from here, and I believe I stopped myself out around here somewhere in the middle there, an hour or two later. Alright, this was just building up more sell side liquidity, but if anything, my stop's there. It's at least going to take my stop before it goes down, right? And this trade isn't great. So with all of those negatives and it being a pullback, and coupled with we've got this buy side liquidity above it, which was important as well. That was another negative now that I was willing to trade against, which didn't make sense, right? It didn't make sense at all. I'll go back down to the 15 minute and I'll show you the trade against me, which would have been much better. Pro trend would have worked out much better. I obviously didn't really look into it too much, but here it is. I'll get rid of that. So now if you look here, we've got a 5 minute order block here. What does it do? This creates an imbalance, breaks the previous high here on the 5 minute. Something like this would have been so obvious, you know, if I was paying attention and looking right instead of looking for an against trend entry, when DXY was tipping his hat as to which way we should go. Got this 5 minute order block. Not worried about down here because all of this is mitigated. This is the only unmitigated order block. We've got beautiful corrective price action. We've got inducement here on lows. We've got nice inducement here. We've got trend line liquidity build up, which also goes up to the high. And yeah, you can see this would have hit TP very quickly. It would have been very nice. Let's say I would have had my order in around there, just below the low, and whoops, just below the low, and I would have targeted the top of the range for just over 2%. Would have been in and out of this trade very quickly. There was news coming up this day, which emphasized even more that I was in the wrong direction, so I'll play this through and you'll see that massive spike that, you know, really went into our favor. Though I would have hit TP twice over way before news come into anything. And there was the news that really went and took the buy side liquidity and went into our POI that we're in now. So I hope you get the point of what I was trying to show here, and I hope there's some lessons learned. And, you know, always journal your losses and learn from them, and have the cons and really assess and analyze what you've done, and see how you can avoid it. And yeah, don't get too lost in the patterns. You know, I use the DXY for a reason. It's there to help me with my entries and trades, and for a pullback, that this was not to the standards that I hold myself for trading, especially with a pullback. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and if you enjoyed, subscribe.